Elias Thorne stood motionless within his penthouse apartment, his steely gray eyes fixed upon the meticulously arranged anniversary dinner table. 25 years of marriage were reflected in the gleam of fine china and crystal glasses. The bottle of 1982 Lafite Rothschild, Vivian's favorite, remained unopened, a silent testament to his attention to detail. At precisely 7 o'clock, the elevator door slid open. Vivian's Louboutin heels clicked against the marble floor, each step deliberate and final. She wore a new Oscar de la Renta dress, its price tag still attached, a detail that did not escape Elias's notice. Really, Elias? Vivian's voice dripped with disdain as she surveyed the elaborate setup. You thought we would have a romantic dinner? Elias maintained his composure, studying his wife's face. The face he had woken up to for 25 years, now holding nothing but contempt. I thought we might discuss things civilly, Vivian. Vivian laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. She reached into her designer handbag and withdrew a thick envelope. There is nothing to discuss, she declared, tossing the envelope onto the table and scattering the rose petals Elias had so carefully arranged. Happy anniversary, darling. Elias picked up the envelope, his movements measured and controlled. Inside lay divorce papers, meticulously prepared and awaiting his signature. He scanned the documents, his expression unchanging. You didn't think I would stay with a small-time financial analyst forever, did you? Vivian moved to the bar, helping herself to a glass of champagne. Julian's Manhattan mansion makes this place look like a storage unit. Julian Ramsey, Elias said quietly, still reading the papers. CEO of Ramsey Dynamics. Quite the upgrade. Oh, you have no idea, Vivian smiled, twirling her glass. For over a year now, we have been together, and he understands precisely how to treat a woman of my caliber. She paused, savoring her next words, and he has helped me make some very intelligent financial decisions. Elias finally looked up from the documents. The joint accounts, all legally transferred, darling. Check page 6. Vivian's smile widened. Julian's lawyers are excellent. You will find everything perfectly in order. A memory flashed through Elias's mind. His first day as a junior broker, analyzing market trends until his eyes burned, identifying patterns others overlooked, the same patterns that had built his fortune, the fortune Vivian had just attempted to dismantle. You have been busy, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. Someone had to be. God knows you were always too wrapped up in your pathetic little market analyses. Vivian drained her glass. Do you know what Julian said when I told him about your anniversary plans? He laughed, actually laughed. Elias placed the papers back on the table. And what else does Julian find amusing? Everything about you, darling. Your sad little attempts at being a big player in the financial world, your obsession with control. She walked closer, her perfume, new, expensive, unfamiliar, filling the space between them. You want to know the best part? While you were busy playing with your spreadsheets, Julian and I were planning our future, in your bed, most of the time. Elias remained still, his face a mask of indifference. But behind his eyes, something dark and calculating stirred. Nothing to say? Vivian taunted. No tearful pleas? No angry outbursts. God, you are pathetic. She grabbed her bag. Julian is waiting for me. Enjoy your sad little life, loser. As Vivian turned to leave, she missed the slight smile that crossed Elias's face. A smile that would have given her pause had she seen it. A smile that spoke of knowledge, of plans already in motion. The elevator doors closed behind her, and Elias walked to his study. He opened his laptop, and he clicked open a folder labeled Insurance. Inside lay hundreds of photographs. Vivian entering Julian's office at odd hours, their secret meetings, their not-so-discreet exchanges in various locations, all meticulously dated and cataloged. He opened another folder, financial records, transaction histories, corporate documents. Every move Vivian and Julian had made was tracked and analyzed. The private investigators' reports were thorough, dating back months, but they merely confirmed what Elias had already suspected. His phone buzzed with a text from Mac. Everything in place. Elias typed back, proceeding as planned, then closed the laptop and returned to the dining room. The divorce papers lay where Vivian had thrown them, her final act of disrespect. Elias picked them up, straightened the pages, and placed them carefully in his briefcase. Another memory surfaced, his first major market prediction, the one that had set him on his path to wealth. He had seen the pattern when no one else had, moving his assets at precisely the right moment. The same skills that had made him rich would now serve a different purpose. Elias looked at his reflection in the window. The man staring back wasn't defeated. He was awakened. Vivian had made a fatal mistake. She had assumed his quiet nature meant weakness, mistaken his patience for passivity. She would learn, as others had before her, that still waters run deep and dangerous. Scene 2. The shadow owner Mac Riley stood in Elias's private office, watching his friend and employer arrange documents on the desk. The space reflected its owner, precise, organized, purposeful. Every item had its place, every document its significance. They cleared out the accounts, Mac asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. Most of them, Elias replied, his tone casual. The ones Vivian knew about. Mac's eyes narrowed. The ones she knew about. Elias looked up, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Did you really think I'd keep all my assets and accounts accessible to her? You know me better than that, Mac. How long have you known about the affair? 7 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. Elias pulled up a series of documents on his computer. The exact duration of Operation Shadow. Mac moved closer to the desk. Operation Shadow. Take a look. Elias turned the screen toward him. Mac's eyes widened as he scanned the documents. Ownership records, shell companies, proxy shareholders, a complex web of financial maneuvers that all led to one conclusion. Jesus Christ, Elias, Mac whispered. You own Ramsey Dynamics. 51% controlling interest. Elias confirmed. Acquired through various shell companies over the past 2 years. Julian's ego made it easy. He never bothered to look closely at his institutional investors. But the cost, the logistics. Penny, I could spare. Contacts I've cultivated. Favors I could call in. Elias's voice remained steady. While Julian was sleeping with my wife, I was buying his company out from under him, piece by piece. Max sank into a chair. Does anyone else know? Only my lawyers, and they're well paid for their discretion. Elias stood and walked to the window. Julian thinks he's taking everything from me. He has no idea he's been dancing to my tune for months. A knock at the door interrupted them. Elias's assistant entered. Sir, Detective Diaz is here for your appointment. Perfect timing, Elias murmured. Send her in. Detective Isabella Diaz entered the office with the confident stride of someone used to commanding respect. Her sharp eyes took in every detail of the room before settling on Elias. Mr. Thorne, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for meeting with me. Please, have a seat. Elias gestured to a chair. This is Marcus Riley, my associate. Detective Mac nodded. I'm investigating some allegations regarding Ramsey Dynamics, Diaz began, pulling out a notebook. Given your personal connection to the situation, I hoped you might have some insights. Elias's expression shifted subtly, vulnerability replacing his usual composure. The mask of control, a personal connection. Ah, you are referring to my wife's affair with Julian Ramsey. Diaz observed him intently. Ex-wife, I should clarify. As of today, yes. Elias's voice faltered slightly. 25 years of marriage concluded with divorce papers served on our anniversary. Quite the dramatic timing, wouldn't you agree, Mr. Thorne? I am more interested in any knowledge you might possess regarding Ramsey Dynamics business practices, Detective. Until today, my sole concern was attempting to salvage my marriage. Elias ran a hand through his hair, the perfect portrait of a man grappling with personal tragedy. I'm afraid I was not paying much attention to Julian Ramsey's business dealings. Mac observed the performance with concealed admiration. Every gesture and word was calculated to project the image of a broken man, too consumed by personal anguish to be capable of corporate manipulation. We have received reports of irregular financial activities, Diaz pressed. Substantial sums moving through unusual channels. That would be my wife's handiwork, Elias stated bitterly. She cleared out our joint accounts. But I assume that is not the focus of your investigation. Diaz made a notation. No, this extends deeper. There are indications of systematic fraud within the company structure itself. How unfortunate, Elias murmured. Though I suppose a man capable of destroying a marriage would not hesitate to bend other rules as well. The detective studied him for a prolonged moment. Mr. Thorne, should you recall anything that might prove relevant to our investigation, please contact me. She presented him with her card. After Diaz departed, Mac turned to Elias. She suspects something. Of course she does. She is proficient at her job. Elias lifted the detective's card. And she will prove exceedingly useful when the moment arrives. The anonymous tip, merely one of many breadcrumbs I have arranged. Elias smiled. Julian's own records will incriminate him. I have merely ensured the appropriate parties are examining the correct locations. Mac shook his head in astonishment. You have accounted for every contingency. When you hunt a predator, Mac, you must think like one. Elias retrieved another set of documents. Now, let us review the next phase. Julian is about to make a critical mistake, and we must be prepared. Scene 3. The gathering storm. Julian Ramsey stood at his office window, admiring his reflection in the glass. His custom Tom Ford suit fit flawlessly, a visual testament to his success. Behind him, Vivian lounged on his leather sofa, scrolling through luxury real estate listings on her iPad. The Hamilton estate is holding an open house next weekend, she remarked. 12 bedrooms, an indoor pool, a private tennis court. Perfect for our housewarming party. Julian smiled indulgently. Thinking big, aren't we? Always, Vivian replied, setting the iPad aside. You should have seen Elias's face when I served him the divorce papers. Complete shock. He had actually prepared dinner. Can you believe it? Candles, roses, the whole pathetic display. Amateur, Julian scoffed. Speaking of amateurs, how much were you able to transfer? Everything from the joint accounts, Vivian answered, her smile triumphant. Your lawyers were right. He never saw it coming. Too preoccupied with his precious market analyses to notice what was happening right under his nose. A knock at the door interrupted them. Bernard Walsh, Julian's chief financial officer, entered, his expression troubled. Julian, we need to talk, Walsh began, then glanced at Vivian. Privately. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Vivian, Julian declared. She will be my wife soon enough. Walsh hesitated. Sir, we are observing unusual activity from our major institutional investors. They are asking pointed questions about our third quarter projections. Julian's tone sharpened. What kind of questions? About our revenue streams, our subsidiary operations, very specific inquiries. Handle it, Julian snapped. That is what I pay you for. Sir, with all due respect, these are not routine inquiries. Someone has been feeding them information, detailed information. Vivian sat up straighter, suddenly alert. What kind of information? Financial records that should not be accessible to outsiders. Outsiders' transaction histories that suggest Walsh trailed off suggest what Julian demanded. Irregularities, sir, the kind that could attract unwanted attention. Julian's face darkened. Are you implying something about my business practices, Bernard? No, sir. I'm saying someone else's. Walsh placed a folder on the desk. These documents were anonymously sent to several of our major shareholders. Julian snatched up the folder, his face growing redder as he read. This is impossible. These records are sealed. Nobody has access to this information. Apparently, somebody does, Walsh said quietly. Find out who, Julian growled. And shut them down, whatever it costs. After Walsh left, Vivian moved to Julian's side. What does this mean? It means we need to move faster. Julian reached for his phone. Get the IPO team in here. We're going public ahead of schedule. Is that wise? Vivian asked. If there are questions about the company's finances, it's perfect timing, Julian insisted. Once we're public, these records become old news. We'll have fresh capital, new investors. Anyone questioning our past dealings will be drowned out by our future success. Neither of them noticed the tiny red light blinking on Julian's desk phone, transmitting every word to a secure server in Elias's office. Later that evening, Detective Diaz sat at her desk, reviewing financial documents. The anonymous tips had started arriving 3 months ago, each one more detailed than the last, each pointing to specific irregularities in Ramsey Dynamics operations. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check the offshore transfers for March 15th. Diaz pulled up the relevant files. There it was, a series of transactions that made no business sense, unless... Her eyes widened as she connected the dots. Got you, she whispered, unaware that she was playing her part in a much larger game. In his own office, Elias watched multiple screens displaying surveillance feeds from Julian's office and financial data, from the streams and Detective Diaz's case notes, all obtained through carefully cultivated sources. Their arrogance makes them careless, he commented to Mac, who stood nearby. Julian is rushing the IPO, just as we predicted, and Vivian still believes she is untouchable. Elias's smile was cold. Let them celebrate while they can. The storm is about to break, and they do not even see it coming. The pieces were in place. The trap was set. All that remained was to watch his enemies walk into it, their own hubris leading them to their destruction. Elias had learned long ago that revenge, like any successful investment, required patience, planning, and perfect timing, and he possessed all three in abundance. Scene 4. The crushing blow. The boardroom of Ramsey Dynamics buzzed with anticipation. Julian Ramsey stood at the head of the mahogany table, his expensive suit and confident smile projecting the image of a man in complete control. Board members and major investors filled the seats, their attention focused on the presentation screen displaying the IPO proposal. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian began. Today marks the beginning of a new era for Ramsey Dynamics. Our decision to go public will position us as Mr. Ramsey, Bernard Walsh interrupted, handing him a note. There is something urgent you need to see. Julian's smile faltered slightly as he read the message. Perhaps we should take a brief recess. The boardroom doors opened, and Max Riley entered, followed by a team of lawyers carrying document boxes. Please continue, Mr. Ramsey, Max said, his voice carrying across the room. This will not take long. Julian's eyes narrowed. This is a private meeting. Security. Security will not be necessary, Mac replied, placing a thick folder on the table. I am here representing the majority shareholder of Ramsey Dynamics. Murmurs rippled through the room. Julian laughed, but there was an edge to it. I am the majority shareholder. No, Mr. Ramsey. Mac distributed documents to each board member. You own 37% of Ramsey Dynamics. The remaining shares were distributed among various institutional investors, or so you had believed. Julian snatched a document, his face paling as he read. This is impossible. Over the past 2 years, Mac continued, addressing the board, these supposedly independent investment groups have been systematically acquired by Shell Corporation Alpha, which is itself owned by Vertex Holdings. Through a series of subsidiary companies, it is controlled by. The presentation screen flickered to life, revealing Elias Thorne's face. His expression was calm and focused. Hello, Julian. Julian stumbled backward. This is some kind of trick. The only trick, Elias said, his voice filling the room, was making you believe you were untouchable. Share purchase, proxy vote, board appointment, all orchestrated to bring us to this moment. You can't do this, Julian shouted. I built this company. And I bought it, Elias replied, legally, systematically. While you were busy stealing my wife, I was acquiring your life's work, piece by piece. The board members exchanged glances, papers rustling as they reviewed the documentation. This is all perfectly legal, one of the lawyers confirmed. Mr. Thorne owns 51% of Ramsey Dynamics through various shell corporations. All proper procedures were followed. Julian spun toward the board members. You can't let him do this. I made you all rich. Mr. Ramsey, a senior board member spoke up. These documents also show concerning irregularities in the company's financial records, irregularities that will be thoroughly investigated. Mac added, along with certain offshore accounts that might interest the SEC. Julian's face went pale. You're bluffing. Am I? Elias's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. Check your phone, Julian. The FBI is currently executing search warrants at your private office and residence. As if on cue, Julian's phone buzzed with multiple messages. His hands shook as he read them. You've lost, Julian, Elias continued. The company, the mansion, everything you built. On lies and betrayal. Consider it the price of stealing what is mine. I will fight this, Julian snarled. I will tie you up in court for years. With what money? Elias asked. Your personal accounts have been frozen pending investigation. Every lawyer in New York has been contacted and warned that representing you would be unwise. Face it, Julian, you are finished. In the back of the boardroom, Detective Diaz watched silently, her notebook forgotten in her hand. The pieces were falling into place. The anonymous tips, the financial irregularities, the perfectly timed revelations. She had been playing a part in someone else's game all along. Mr. Ramsey, Max said. Security will escort you from the building. Your access has been revoked, and your personal items will be shipped to wherever you end up. Julian looked around the room, finding no allies among the faces he had once commanded. His empire was crumbling, and the architect of his destruction was not even there to witness it in person. Vivian, he gasped. I need to warn. Miss Sterling's access has also been revoked, Mac informed him. I believe she is about to receive some rather unpleasant news of her own. As security led Julian away, his protests echoed down the corridor. Max turned to address the board. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Thorne has prepared a detailed presentation on the company's new direction. Shall we begin? Scene 5. The Price of Pride. Julian's Manhattan mansion hummed with activity, but not the kind its owner had ever envisioned. Security teams changed locks while forensic accountants boxed documents. Vivian Sterling stood in the grand foyer, her designer outfit clashing with the chaos around her. You cannot do this, she repeated, clutching her Hermes bag like a shield. This is my home. Actually, Mrs. Sterling, the head of security consulted his tablet. According to property records, this house belongs to Vertex Holdings, a subsidiary of I know who owns it, Vivian snapped. Where is Julian? He will sort this out. Mr. Ramsey is currently unavailable, the security chief replied, and you have 30 minutes to collect essential personal items. The rest will be inventoried and stored pending legal resolution. Vivian's phone buzzed. The message from her bank made her blood run cold. Her accounts, all of them, were frozen. Mrs. Sterling, a man in a suit approached, holding a document. I represent the law firm handling your divorce settlement. Given recent developments, Mr. Thorne is exercising his right to contest the financial terms. All assets are frozen pending review. He can't do that. Vivian's voice rose to a shriek. I earned that money. By draining joint accounts without disclosure. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. The courts may see it differently. Also, given Mr. Ramsey's legal situation, any assets transferred from him to you are subject to investigation. Vivian's designer heels clicked sharply across the marble floor as she paced. I need to call my lawyer. Your lawyer's firm has withdrawn representation, the man informed her. Something about a conflict of interest. In his home office, Elias watched the scene unfold on multiple screens. Max stood beside him, reading reports from the takeover team. Julian's being processed by the FBI, Mac reported. The evidence was overwhelming once they knew where to look. His lawyers are abandoning him faster than rats from a sinking ship. And Vivian, complete asset freeze, no access to accounts, credit cards canceled, all property seized pending investigation. She's got whatever cash is in her purse and the clothes on her back. Elias nodded. What about the job arrangements? Julian's Uber application has been approved. It's the only job he'll be able to get with his reputation in tatters. Vivian's position at the mall clothing store starts Monday. Minimum wage, of course. Perfect. Elias's smile was cold. Let them experience life without their precious status. Let them know what it's like to struggle, to be looked down upon. Vivian was being escorted to the street, her protests falling on deaf ears. Her phone rang. Julian, calling from a borrowed phone after his release from FBI questioning. Julian, they're taking everything. It's gone, Vivian said. Julian's voice cracked. The company, the money, everything. Elias planned this all along. Fix this, Vivian, he demanded. You promised me a life of luxury. I can't. I can't even afford a hotel room. My cards are all declined. I'm calling from a payphone. The line went dead. Vivian stood on the sidewalk, her world collapsing around her. A passing taxi splashed water onto her designer's shoes. Shoes she had bought with money stolen from her ex-husband, money she would never have again. In his office, Elias watched her distress with detachment. Send her the job offer, he instructed Mac. Make it clear it's the only position she'll be able to get in this city. Mac observed, you're not just taking their money. You're making them live like the people they look down on. They chose this, Elias replied. Betrayal is a cruel word. The moment they spent mocking what they called my pathetic life, they chose it all. Now they can live with those choices. The security feed showed Vivian trying to book a hotel room, her frustration growing as card after card was declined. Finally, she called the one person she thought might help, her sister, Sophie. I need a place to stay, Sophie. Sophie, don't hang up, but the line was already dead. Elias had been thorough, Everyone in Vivian's social circle had been quietly informed of her situation. No one wanted to risk their own status by associating with her. Where will they go? Mac asked. Julian has a cousin in Queens who might take him in, Elias said. And Vivian? Well, there's always the subway. The security feeds showed the final stages of the takeover. Julian's personal items were being boxed, his life reduced to inventory lists. Vivian's closet was being cataloged, her precious designer collection tagged and bagged as potential evidence. Should we tell them? Has there been any news regarding the criminal charges yet? Mac inquired. Not yet, Elias responded. Let them believe this is the worst of it. When the indictments are issued next week, the impact will be that much more devastating. Scene 6. A new beginning. The Manhattan mansion had been utterly transformed. The garish exhibitions of wealth that had characterized Julian and Vivian's occupancy were gone, replaced by an atmosphere that exuded warmth and clear purpose. Its opulence was now channeled toward comfort rather than ostentatious display. Clara Monroe moved through the rooms with a quiet authority, directing contractors and organizers. Every space was being repurposed with deliberate intent. Dormitories for single mothers, childcare facilities, and educational areas. The security system must be top-notch, she instructed the installation team. Many of our residents will be escaping perilous situations. They need to feel secure here. A young woman holding a small child approached tentatively. Ms. Monroe? I'm Teresa Bellwether Tess. The agency sent me. Clara turned, her face brightening with a genuine smile. Of course. Welcome, Tess. And who is this little one? This is Emma, Tess replied, as her daughter hid shyly behind her legs. We truly appreciate this opportunity. Please, come see your new space, Clara said, leading them toward the residential wing. Each unit has its own bathroom and kitchenette. We provide childcare while mothers are working or studying, and there is a communal dining area for those who prefer to share meals. As they walked, Tessa's eyes widened at the sheer scope of the facility. This must have cost a fortune to establish. The owner believes in giving people second chances, Clara replied gently. Sometimes life takes unexpected turns, and everyone deserves support while they rebuild. In his private office, Elias observed the interaction on his security monitor, his expression inscrutable. Mac entered with fresh reports. Julian's first day as an Uber driver was interesting, he stated. He's already received 3 one-star reviews. Apparently, he is not adept at taking orders from passengers. And Vivian began her mall job today. She had a scene of chaos unfolded when a customer demanded to speak to her manager, prompting security to intervene. Elias nodded, his attention returning to the screen where Clara was showing Tess the childcare facility. The shelter's security is state-of-the-art, Clara confirmed. Full coverage facial recognition, panic buttons in every room. Nobody gets in without proper clearance. Good, Elias's voice softened slightly. These women have been through enough. They deserve to feel safe. A new figure appeared on the security feed, Detective Diaz, arriving for what appeared to be a casual visit. She and Clara greeted each other warmly, clearly building a friendship. Izzy, perfect timing, Clara said. We're just showing our newest resident around. This is Tess and Emma. Detective Diaz smiled at the child. Hi, Emma. I'm Izzy. You know what I do? I help people who are having problems. Like a superhero? Emma asked, peeking out from behind her mother. Something like that, Izzy laughed. Sometimes people need someone to stand up for them, to make things right. Clara led them to the dining area, where other mothers and children were gathering for lunch. The space buzzed with conversation and laughter, a far cry from the cold, formal dinners Julian and Vivian had hosted. It's amazing, Izzy said to Clara as they watched the families interact. But I have to ask, the owner of this place, turning a mansion into a shelter, that's not something you see every day. No, Clara agreed. I suppose some people believe in justice taking different forms. Izzy's eyes narrowed slightly at Clara's choice of words. In her mind, pieces of a puzzle were shifting, forming a new picture. Back in his office, Elias watched the detective's thoughtful expression. She's figuring it out, he told Mac. Is that a problem? No, Elias replied. Detective Diaz understands that justice and law aren't always the same thing. She's seen enough victims of circumstance to know that sometimes balance must be restored through other means. The security feed continued. Clara bid farewell, to Izzy before returning to assist Tess and Emma as they settled into their new home. The stark contrast between the mansion's former grandeur and its present purpose resonated deeply, stirring even Elias's meticulously guarded heart. "Sir," Mac ventured hesitantly, "about Vivian's request to volunteer at the shelter, absolutely not." Elias's voice turned glacial. "She doesn't get to ease her conscience by playing savior to these women. Let her learn what it truly means to struggle, to be judged, to be found wanting. Some debts can never be repaid." Through the surveillance cameras, he observed Clara conducting an orientation session for new residents. Her innate empathy drew participation from even the most reserved individuals. She embodied everything Vivian was not: genuine, compassionate, and consistently focused on others rather than herself. "The foundation paperwork is ready," Mac reported. "Once you sign, the shelter becomes a permanent institution with guaranteed funding." Elias gave a firm nod. "Make it happen. These women deserve more than temporary sanctuary. They deserve a genuine opportunity to rebuild their lives." The security feed revealed Emma finally emerging from her shell, playing with other children in the newly established playroom. Tess watched through tear-filled eyes as her daughter laughed freely for the first time in months. "Sometimes," Elias murmured, "destruction can lead to creation. They destroyed what I had, so I destroyed what they had. But from those ashes, something better can rise." Mac understood this was not merely about revenge, it was reconstruction. For every life Vivian and Julian had carelessly damaged, Elias would help another heal, balancing the scales of justice in his own distinctive manner. Scene 7. Unveiled Truths. Clara sat in her office at the women's shelter, reviewing donation records when a familiar name captured her attention. She navigated through several files, each revelation compounding her growing suspicion. The shelter's property records, the funding sources, the timing of the acquisition, all evidence pointed toward one inevitable conclusion. She gathered the documents, her mind racing with the implications of her discovery. She proceeded to Elias's office, where he and Mac were deep in discussion regarding security enhancements for the shelter. Both men glanced up as she entered, and Mac immediately observed the look on her face. "I'll give you two some privacy," Mac offered, moving toward the door. "Stay," Clara commanded, her tone resolute. "I believe you are part of this story as well, Mac." She placed the documents on Elias's desk. This mansion originally belonged to Julian Ramsey and Vivian Sterling before it was converted into a shelter. The same Julian Ramsey whose company collapsed amid a takeover scandal, and the same Vivian Sterling who, according to these marriage records, was once Vivian Thorne. Elias studied her face, his expression unreadable. "You have been investigating." "I am thorough," Clara replied. "Something Detective Diaz mentioned made me curious about the various forms justice can take." "And what have you concluded?" Elias's voice remained steady. "That my husband is either the most calculating architect of revenge I have ever encountered, or the most strategic philanthropist." Clara spread the papers across the desk. "The timing is too perfect. The establishment of the shelter coincides exactly with the collapse of Ramsey Dynamics. The property transfer, the funding structure. It is all connected." Mac shifted uncomfortably, but Elias raised a hand. "She deserves the truth, Mac." He turned to Clara. "What else have you discovered?" "Vivian was your wife for 25 years. She had an affair with Julian Ramsey and attempted to ruin you financially, but you had already outmaneuvered them. You owned Ramsey Dynamics through shell companies and orchestrated their downfall. Is that all?" "No." Clara's eyes narrowed. "You arranged their current circumstances, Julian driving for Uber, Vivian working in retail. That is not coincidence. That is design. You stripped them of everything they valued: status, wealth, power." Elias stood and walked to a wall safe. He entered the code, retrieved a thick file, and said, "You want the whole truth? Here it is." For the next hour, he laid out the complete story, beginning with the anniversary dinner and the divorce papers. The calculated betrayal he had shown her. Surveillance photos. Financial records. The entire architecture of his revenge. "You planned this for years," Clara said quietly. "The moment I suspected their affair, I began preparing." Elias's voice carried no remorse. "Not just to destroy them, but to ensure they would never recover. They thought I was weak, pathetic. They believed their status made them untouchable. And now, Now they understand. They understand true weakness, true humiliation. He met her gaze. I don't expect you to approve. I don't need to approve or disapprove, Clara interrupted. I need to understand. Show me everything, Elias. No filters, no omissions. Mac retrieved more files, and Elias continued his explanation. He detailed the manipulation of investors, the strategic leaks to Detective Diaz, the careful dismantling of Julian and Vivian's social networks. You didn't just take their money, Clara observed. You isolated them, made sure no one would help them rebuild. They chose their path, Elias replied. Cruelty, betrayal, those were their choices. I simply ensured they would face the consequences. And the shelter? Was that part of your revenge, too? No. For the first time, Elias's voice softened slightly. That was you. Your vision. I merely provided the means. Clara absorbed this, her mind working through the implications. The women we help here, many of them have stories like yours. Betrayal, manipulation, abuse of trust. Yes. So this isn't just revenge. It's restoration. She gestured to the shelter. For every life they damaged, we are helping another heal. Elias studied her face. Does this change things between us? You think I'm horrified by your capacity for revenge? Clara smiled grimly. I've worked with abuse survivors for years, Elias. I understand the difference between cruelty and justice. She stood and gathered the documents. But I need to know one thing. Are we done with the past, or is there more to come? The foundation paperwork is being finalized, Elias replied. The shelter will be permanent with guaranteed funding. Beyond that, Julian and Vivian made their choices. They can live with the consequences. Clara nodded slowly. Then let's focus on the future. But no more secrets, Elias. I'm not Vivian. I won't be managed or manipulated. No. Elias agreed, his eyes meeting hers. You never could be. Scene 8. Forgiveness and closure. The shelter's main hall buzzed with activity as Tess coordinated the afternoon support group meeting. New residents were settling in. Children played in the supervised care area, and Clara moved through it all with quiet authority. Suddenly, the security system chimed, alerting them to a visitor. On the monitor, Vivian Sterling stood at the gate, her municipal uniform a stark contrast to her former designer wardrobe. Ma'am, the security guard's voice crackled over the intercom. This is a private facility. You need authorization, please. Vivian's voice had lost its aristocratic polish. I just want to talk to Clara Monroe, or Elias, please. Clara watched the monitor, noting the changes in the woman who had once sneered at ordinary people. Months of minimum wage work had stripped away her arrogance, replacing it with something approaching humility. Let her wait, Elias said from behind Clara. She hadn't heard him approach. She looks different, Clara observed. Poverty has that effect, Elias replied, no sympathy softening his voice, especially on those who once despised it. They watched as Vivian shifted nervously at the gate. Her hair was simply styled now, her makeup minimal. The designer bags under her eyes couldn't be concealed. I want to hear what she has to say, Clara decided. Elias's jaw tightened. She's manipulative. I'm not you, Clara reminded him. I won't be fooled by false remorse. She pressed the intercom. Security, escort her to my office. Full protocol. Vivian was searched and scanned before being led through the shelter. Her eyes darted around, taking in the transformed spaces where she'd once hosted lavish parties. In Clara's office, she perched uncertainly on the chair. Thank you for seeing me. I have been trying to find a way to talk to someone. Why are you here, Vivian? Clara kept her voice neutral. I have seen the women who come here, their stories. Vivian twisted her hands. I want to help. Volunteer, maybe. Try to make amends. No. Elias stepped from the shadows, making Vivian flinch. You do not get to ease your conscience here. Elias, please. Vivian's voice cracked. I know what I did was unforgivable. Correct. His tone could have frozen fire. You and Julian did not just betray me. You mocked me, called my life pathetic while you plotted to steal it. I was wrong. Tears spilled down Vivian's cheeks. I see that now. Working at the mall, living in that tiny apartment, I understand what real struggle is. No, Elias corrected her. You understand consequences. There is a difference. Clara watched the exchange silently, noting how Vivian's shoulders hunched under Elias's cold gaze. The women here, Elias continued, are survivors fighting to rebuild their lives. They do not need the entertainment of watching you perform public penance. That is not what this is, Vivian protested weakly. Isn't it? Clara spoke up. You were happy enough in your retail job when you thought no one was watching. It is only now, knowing about the shelter, that you suddenly feel charitable. Vivian's face crumpled. I need something. Some purpose. Julian is in prison. My friends will not speak to me, my family. Your choices, Elias reminded her. Your consequences. How long? Vivian whispered. How long do I have to pay? That is the thing about consequences, Vivian. Elias moved to stand behind Clara's chair. They are not punishment. They are reality. This is your life now. Accept it. Clara leaned forward. The women here are not a prop for your redemption story. They are rebuilding their lives with dignity and courage, qualities you might want to consider developing. Security escorted Vivian out. Through the monitors, they watched her. He walked away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. You're still angry, Clara observed to Elias. Not angry, resolved. He replied, touching her shoulder lightly. Some debts can't be repaid. Some trust can't be rebuilt. Tess appeared in the doorway. Clara, the new residents are ready for orientation. Clara stood. Coming. She turned to Elias. The past is done. Let us focus on those we can actually help. Scene 9. The Phoenix Rises. Elias's home office had become something of a command center. One wall displayed shelter statistics, occupancy rates, success stories, employment numbers. Another showed Ramsey Dynamics' transformation under new management, its resources redirected toward ethical ventures. Clara entered with coffee and foundation documents. The board approved everything. The shelter funding is guaranteed for the next 20 years. Good, Elias said, signing the papers without hesitation. What about the expansion plans? 3 new locations identified, Clara replied, pulling up the proposals. All in areas with high needs and good access to resources. Mac arrived with more reports. Julian's appeal was denied. He'll serve his full sentence. And Vivian, still at the mall. Her manager says she's actually becoming a decent employee, less entitled. Elias nodded, unsurprised. The foundation structure is ironclad, Clara confirmed. Even if something happened to us, the shelter would continue. The women we help will always have support. She studied her husband's face. You've thought about this, haven't you? Making sure your revenge created something lasting. The best revenge isn't destruction, Elias replied. It's transformation. They tried to destroy what I built. I used that to build something better. Speaking of building, Clara said, pulling out another document. I was thinking. We've been so focused on work. Maybe it's time for a break. Elias raised an eyebrow. A break. 2 weeks. Just us. Somewhere without spreadsheets or security feeds. The shelter is running perfectly. Tess has really stepped up as coordinator. Mac can handle any issues. In the quiet of the office, Clara settled gracefully upon his desk. We have built something extraordinary here, she began. But we also deserve time to truly enjoy it. Elias remained silent for a long moment. Where would you want to go? Anywhere. Everywhere, Clara replied with a soft smile. We've spent so much time helping others rebuild. Perhaps it's time we focused on building our own happiness as well. I am happy, Elias said simply. This work, this life with you, it's no longer just about revenge. It has become a purpose. Then let us celebrate that purpose, Clara declared, pulling up travel destinations on her screen. 2 weeks. No business, no revenge, no past. Just us. Elias's gaze drifted across the screens surrounding them. The shelter statistics showing lives being rebuilt, the foundation documents ensuring their work would endure, and even the Ramsey Dynamics reports revealing a company transformed from greed into something of genuine value. You're right, he decided at last. The past is settled. The future is secure. Rising, he drew Clara close. Let us focus on now. From the doorway, Matt cleared his throat. I'll have my team begin travel arrangements. Any preferences? Somewhere we've never been, Clara suggested. A fresh start. A fresh start, Elias echoed, but not a soft one. Never that. Clara laughed warmly. Never that. You're still you, just with better priorities. They spent the evening planning their journey, yet still took time to review the shelter's progress. Each success story, each woman who had rebuilt her life, stood as a testament to transformation. From the ashes of betrayal, something stronger had risen. The Phoenix Gambit, Clara mused, amused. That's what Detective Diaz called your takeover strategy. But it's more than that, isn't it? It's about rising from destruction, using pain to fuel rebirth. For everyone except Julian and Vivian, Elias reminded her. Some people don't deserve Phoenix moments. No, Clara agreed. Some people just deserve consequences. She studied the shelter statistics intently. But their consequences created opportunities for others. That's a different kind of justice. Elias drew her near. A better kind. The kind that builds instead of breaks. Together, they stood, united in purpose and hope. I observed the evening routine of the shelter through the security feeds. Women who had once been broken were now finding strength. Children who had known only fear were learning to laugh again. Even Mac, ever vigilant, was smiling as he reviewed the day's reports. The Phoenix had risen, not through forgiveness or forgetting, but through transformation. Justice had been served, not merely through punishment, but through creation. And in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Autumn Gala for the Thorn Foundation drew Manhattan's elite to the renovated Grand Plaza. Beneath crystal chandeliers, donors and supporters mingled, celebrating 5 years of transforming lives through the network of women's shelters that had grown from a single mansion to 12 locations across 3 states. Clara Thorne moved through the crowd with practiced ease, her quiet confidence matching her husband's power. She had just finished announcing their latest initiative, a scholarship program for shelter residents pursuing higher education. At one of the tables, Tess Bellwether, now the Foundation's program director, sat with her daughter Emma. At 12 years old, Emma was already talking about becoming a lawyer like Miss Diaz. We have come a long way from our first days at the shelter, Tess reflected. She had not only rebuilt her own life, but had helped countless others do the same. Detective Isabella Diaz, recently promoted to captain, joined their table. She had become an integral part of the Foundation's legal advocacy program, helping women navigate the justice system. Her understanding of both law and justice had proven invaluable. The stats from the DA's office are encouraging, Izzy told Tess. Conviction rates are up 30% since we implemented the witness support program. Mario, still Elias's right hand, but now also the Foundation's chief of security, supervised his team with characteristic thoroughness. 5 years had added gray to his temples, but had not diminished his vigilance. He noticed everything. From across the street, Vivian Sterling stood in her mall uniform, having just finished her shift. 5 years of retail work had permanently erased her aristocratic posture. Her once manicured hands were worn from folding clothes and restocking shelves. She was not supposed to be there. The restraining order was still in effect, but sometimes she came just to look through the windows. She could see her ex-husband standing with Clara, their body language revealing the easy intimacy of a strong marriage. Elias had only grown more powerful over the years. Ramsey Dynamics, renamed Thorn Enterprises, had become a force for corporate responsibility, its profits funding both the Foundation and new ethical business ventures. Vivian's phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor about covering an extra shift tomorrow. She needed the money. Her studio apartment in Queens barely covered utilities, and her credit was still ruined. No one in her former social circle would even take her calls anymore. 2 blocks away, in a different direction, Julian Ramsey sat in his parked Uber between rides on the night shift. Prison had aged him 20 years, and his release had not brought any relief. The ankle monitor ensured he kept to his approved routes, and the restitution payments consumed most of his earnings. His dating app profile received no matches. Women tended to Google potential dates, and his history was there for everyone to see. Back at the gala, Elias stood at the podium to announce the Foundation's latest expansion. 5 years ago, we made a promise. His voice carried authority, earned through victory rather than inherited privilege. We promised to transform tragedy into triumph, to help women rebuild their lives after betrayal and abuse. Today, I am pleased to announce our expansion into Chicago and Los Angeles. Applause filled the room. In the audience, success stories from the shelters sat proudly. Women who had arrived broken had become business owners. Educators and healthcare workers, along with their children who had once been traumatized by instability, were now thriving in schools and various activities. Elias continued. The Foundation's work is proof that the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fires. Every woman who rebuilds her life, every child who regains their smile, and every family restored to stability. These are the true measures of success. Clara joined him at the podium. Their 3-year-old daughter Michelle settled comfortably on her hip. The child was a perfect blend of them both, with Elias's analytical mind and Clara's compassionate heart already evident in her budding personality. Meanwhile, Vivian turned away from the window, her shoulders slumped in resignation. Her efficiency rating at work was dropping, and she could not afford another demotion. The walk to the subway station took her past familiar landmarks, restaurants she could no longer afford and shops where she had once been a valued customer. Her tiny apartment awaited her, complete with its leaky faucet and noisy radiator. On her nightstand sat a letter from Julian, filled with bitter complaints about his latest parole restrictions. They had not seen each other since his release. Their relationship had not survived their fall from grace. Julian's Uber app pinged with another ride request. Friday nights were busy, and he needed every dollar. His previous passenger had recognized him, making snide comments about that corrupt CEO who got what he deserved. He had learned to stay silent and endure the humiliation. His attempts to find better work had all failed. Elias's influence ensured his reputation remained toxic in the business world. Back at the gala, Mac approached Elias with his tablet. Vivian was outside again. She didn't approach, just watched. And Julian is working his usual route. The tracking system shows him staying within the boundaries. Elias nodded, unsurprised. The new shelter locations, all properties secured through shell companies. No connections are traceable. Clara, overhearing the conversation, touched Elias's arm gently. Still protecting them? Everyone always knew his smile was for her alone. Speaking of protection, he inquired, "How is the London expansion? Is it on schedule?" Tess is flying out next month to train the new staff. Across the room, Emma was showing Izzy her latest school project, a presentation on women's legal rights. The girl who had once hidden behind her mother now spoke with confidence, her future bright with possibilities. Captain Diaz, Elias greeted as they approached. The Foundation's legal fund has helped another 50 women this quarter. Izzy replied, "I saw the reports. Your network makes prosecution possible. Women feel safe testifying when they know they are protected." Tess joined them, her professional attire a far cry from her first days at the shelter. "The new job training program is at capacity. We are looking at expanding the hours." They discussed future plans, new shelters, expanded services, stronger support networks. The Foundation had become a model for similar programs nationwide. Other organizations sought their guidance and tried to replicate their success. Later that night, after the gala, Elias and Clara stood in their penthouse apartment. Michelle slept peacefully in her room, surrounded by books and dreams. Through the window, they could see the city lights, the same view Elias had once shared with Vivian, but now seen through very different eyes. "Any regrets?" Clara asked, though she knew the answer. "About them?" "None." Elias's voice was firm. "They chose their path. The consequences are theirs to bear. And this path, the Foundation, the shelters, all of it, this path we chose together." He drew her close. "From their betrayal, we built something lasting, something meaningful." In her apartment, Vivian ate a microwave dinner alone, watching entertainment news coverage of the gala. Her own face appeared briefly in an old photo. "Disgraced socialite," the caption read. She quickly changed the channel. Julian's night shift continued, each passenger a reminder of his fall, the same people. The very individuals he had once looked down upon now held power over his ratings, his income, and his very survival. The ankle monitor blinked steadily, a constant reminder of his chains. At the Foundation, the lights stayed on late, the shelter staff working tirelessly around the clock. Women who arrived seeking safety found strength instead. Children learned to trust again, and families rebuilt themselves from the ashes of betrayal. Max's security team maintained their unwavering vigilance, while Tess prepared training materials for the new London shelter. Izzy reviewed case files, devising new strategies to protect vulnerable witnesses. The machine Elias had built from his revenge continued to grow, its reach lengthening, its influence helping many from their home office. There, Elias and Clara reviewed ambitious plans for the next 5 years. more shelters, expanded services, and stronger support networks. Their daughter slept peacefully, surrounded by both security and love, her future assured in ways Vivian had once taken for granted. The board meeting is tomorrow, Clara reminded him. The London expansion details are already prepared. Elias's efficiency had not diminished. The new funding structure ensured lasting stability. They worked late into the night, building a legacy not of revenge, though that remained sweet, but of transformation. They had taken the bitter ashes of betrayal and forged something unbreakable. Outside, the city moved through its nightly rhythms. Vivian turned out her lights. Another day of struggled dignity ended. Julian logged off his app, counting his meager tips. In the shelter, residents slept safely, their dreams finally peaceful. The phoenix had risen, its wings spread wide. From one man's revenge, countless lives found redemption. Not the betrayers. Their fate remained fixed, their consequences eternal. But for others, for those who deserved it, the path from darkness led to light. Elias Thorne had proven that revenge, properly executed, could build as well as destroy. His power had only grown, his influence expanded, his legacy secured, not through forgiveness, for he never offered that and never would, but through transformation. The night deepened. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new lives to rebuild. The foundation was secure, its mission clear. From the ashes of betrayal, something magnificent had risen. Somewhere in Queens, in her tiny apartment, Vivian Sterling lay awake, remembering what she had lost. In his rented room, Julian Ramsey counted his meager earnings. Their choices had condemned them to lives of struggle. Their betrayal earned eternal consequences. But in their penthouse, Elias and Clara Thorne planned tomorrow's victories. Their daughters slept safely, their mission expanded, and their love deepened. They had taken the fire of revenge and forged it into purpose, proving that sometimes the greatest victory lies not in destroying enemies, but in building something they can never touch. The phoenix had risen, and it would rise again with each life rebuilt, each family restored, each victory won. Not through forgiveness, but through transformation. Not through forgetting, but through building. The game was long since won, but its fruits continued growing, spreading, and strengthening. Elias had proven that justice could build as well as break, and in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.